From one Martin to another. Do you remember I mentioned yesterday that there was a Facebook Live video of Martin Condon walking into Anglesey Street Garda Station at the weekend with a wee small cannabis plant and some cannabis in his pocket. It was an act of civil disobedience. I just wanted to catch up with him briefly. He joins me by phone. Martin, good morning.
Good morning.
What was it all about?
I suppose it was in reaction really to the raids by Gardaí, but also to the inaction of a government in relation to the policies around cannabis and cannabis access.
Okay, so
a lot of it's for patients.
So I understand what you're saying. So you decided to take a cannabis plant in with some cannabis in your pocket to get arrested, was it?
It was an act of civil disobedience. I don't respect that law. I don't give it legitimacy, and I think that the Gardaí they're ineffective in their duties in enforcing that.
You're not on a hands-free there or pods, are you?
I am. I'll take you off it there.
Yeah, no hands-free, no pods. It just doesn't work on live radio. So when you walked up to the counter, because I saw the video, but I couldn't really hear what the guard was saying. How did the guard react at the desk?
The guard at the desk was okay about it. He was kind of shocked, I suppose, really, that I was showing up at his desk with a cannabis plant and some cannabis. What I had, the cannabis I had, I bought it from Little Collins. So I bought it from Little Collins online and had it delivered to my front door. It's a health food product. It doesn't actually even get you high, but still our Gardaí will enforce it and treat it like it's cannabis.
Why doesn't the cannabis get you high? What kind of cannabis is it?
It's this particular one I brought in was high in CBG, which is another type of cannabinoid, which is beneficial for our health. It's low in THC, which is the psychoactive cannabinoid, but yet still it is a cannabis flower, and our law says cannabis flowers are illegal. But European legislation actually says no, there shouldn't be a restriction on products like this, CBD and CBG. Other cannabinoids are not narcotics.
For people with pain or arthritis or issues like that?
Yeah, and even for people's pets.
So the guard said to you, do you really want to do this, is it?
Yeah, the guard kind of was saying that, do you really want to do this? But really, was he going to let me walk away with my cannabis plant? I don't think so.
He didn't, did he? He took it off you?
Oh, he did, yeah, and I let him take my name, and I'm looking forward to my day in court to fight this, and I'll be back out doing more protests like this very soon again.
So when you get up before the judge, what is your intention then?
Once I get up to the judge, then I'll be stating my case that this is a human rights issue, that this is a constitutional issue, that they're restricting my freedom of travel, my liberty, my ability to get a job, all because of what? Where is there evidence or the justification for my use of cannabis being a misuse?
Why can't you get a job?
Because I have a conviction for cannabis possession.
Does that come up at interviews? Has that happened in the past?
Well, to me, it comes up in my own mind before I even apply for a job. Am I going to get asked this? And a lot of the times that's the deterrent to even apply for a job, knowing that there's many other people that I went through and got my honours degree with who don't have criminal.
But nobody at an interview asks somebody, do they smoke cannabis? Do they? No,
they ask you, do you have a conviction? That's a lot of the times it's on the sheets for the job application. I have an honours degree and the field of work I'd be working in would be in kind of pharmaceuticals, but I wouldn't be able to do that because... But
if I was interviewing somebody, if I had a company and they had a conviction for possession of cannabis and they were damn good at their job, sure, I wouldn't give a damn about that.
But Neil, you don't know if I have a conviction for cannabis. All you know is I have a drugs conviction because it's not differentiated on the job sheet. It asks you, what's your conviction? And you'd have to put down a Section 3 Misuse of Drugs Act. That's pretty much what I have.
So you wouldn't even get to the interview stage then, you're saying, is it?
You wouldn't even get to the interview.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
So it's rather discriminatory what's going on. And effectively, we see over in America that the world hasn't crumbled because they've legalised cannabis. I believe there's over 15 states now where adults can freely access cannabis from a retail environment.
You don't have to go that far. You go to Amsterdam, can't you?
Well, Amsterdam, it's still illegal, Neil, and there's still criminals benefit from the production of it. There's only a pilot program now being undertaken in Amsterdam recently where the government are sponsoring, I think it's maybe 10 growers to grow the cannabis for the market over there, because basically the criminals have been making the money all along because of ignorant...
How can it be illegal if you can go in and buy one of these cannabis pot cookies, you know?
Yeah, it's basically the coffee shops have like a tolerance. They're allowed have up to like 500 grams of cannabis on the premises, and they won't really get in trouble. But there's no legal avenue there for them to buy that cannabis. That cannabis just magically appears from nowhere. There's no legal avenue in Amsterdam. But like if you go to somewhere like say Illinois that only recently legalized cannabis, they're after diverting hundreds of millions away from criminal enterprises, and they're diverting that money back into the social enterprise programs. They're giving back equity to the people who've been most affected by the war on drugs over there, which was the black and the Latino groups in America. And this is showing in it that the facts do not lie, that this was being very much racist in its origins, the whole war on drugs.
A lot of the lads that I was talking to recently, and they were young fellas getting into trouble, and a lot of it had to do with the different drugs they were taking. They all started on cannabis.
Yeah, that's what they say, Neil. But I was on Eating with the Enemy recently, and the guy I was sitting across the table from, he was an ex-heroin addict, a drug addict. But really, he said it at the end of the interview himself, like his problem actually started with a mental health issue. People who go on to abuse drugs and develop drug abuse problems, they're actually started with a mental health issue. It doesn't start with a drug. It starts with a mental health issue. Like, why didn't I go on to use heroin, cocaine, if this gateway theory or if this kind of ideas hold any truth? It doesn't. It's about the environment in which the person comes up upon, which determines how the drug is going to affect them.
They were saying things like that it lowered their inhibitions and it made them take more risks, and that led them on then to ecstasy, prescription.
Are we talking about alcohol here, is it? Are we talking about alcohol, Neil? Because that's what's lowered my inhibitions. I sniffed a bag of cocaine one night after a few pints, and I wouldn't have made that decision if I was sober.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. No, I'm just telling you what
I've never made that decision on hash. I've never made that decision on weed. Yeah. I've never decided like, I'd love to take a bag of yolks or a bag of coke because I'm high on weed. When I was drunk, I made that decision because my decision-making capacity was lowered. But do we have anybody calling to make drink illegal, Neil? Are we on here to make drink illegal? No, we don't, because we know that's a stupid thing to do. It would result in chaos out there. Imagine if the Kinahans had the alcohol industry now under their belt of kind of drugs they can sell.
Yeah.
Imagine what that would do to us.
So when you go into court, then you will be, because you already have a conviction, could that lead to spot of jail time or another fine, or what are you expecting?
To be honest, I'm going in there as this is a protest, and if the judge wants to lock me up, he'll be locking me up for protesting, and I'll be quite glad to do that. I'll be a political prisoner then at this stage, because this is a political issue. It's affecting our society. These politicians are refusing to engage in this. They're ignoring the experts out there. There's been numerous recommendations made in the past to the government to even decriminalise the drug user.
All right, but that's on the cards, isn't it? There's certainly conversations about it.
It's been on the cards for a long time, Neil, but still out there. Today, there's going to be somebody criminalised for their cannabis use who doesn't deserve it. There's going to be somebody have their future jeopardised because their career prospects are going to be lowered now because of a criminal conviction over a simple bit of plant matter. It's ridiculous. The punishment does much more damage to the individual than the substance does. And then there's people in addiction then out there who are addicted. There's people out there who are afraid to get help because they're afraid to admit to even using a illegal drug because of the stigma around using illegal drugs. If these drugs weren't illegal, the barrier to access help for these individuals would be lowered because they wouldn't have to face that same stigma.
Is cannabis
an illegal drug user?
Is cannabis addictive?
Is cannabis addictive? Again, it comes down to the individual, Neil.
Abuse of anything could lead to an addiction, is it? I suppose
anything can be addictive. It comes down to the individual. So I could argue I have a cup of coffee here beside me at the moment, and are we going to make coffee illegal because I have to have a cup of coffee every morning? And it's a hard habit to break. Is it addictive or is it just a habit? You see, like we have to try to differentiate there between use and abuse. What's a habit and what's an addiction? It's because this is all very derogatory. If I go for a pint every weekend, if I have a glass of wine on every evening, am I addicted or do I just have a habit?
Yeah. When do you expect to get a summons? Will that take weeks or months? Or
it's a year or so, maybe. I got caught in 2019 with a joint for €10, and it took them a year and a half to get that summons to me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't faced with the big backlog that's currently there with the COVID. So that's the whole point of my protest as well, is to highlight the backlog in the justice system. There's I would imagine over 50% of the cases dealt with in the justice system have some relation to drugs. Imagine if we were able to deal with remove that.
we'll see what happens with regards to your court appearance. In the meantime, though, they'll have to keep that little plant watered, won't they? Because it'll be used in evidence against you, won't it? So they don't want it wilted or dead by the time it gets to court.
No, I would hope not. I would love to see it being taken care of and to talk to the guard who's taking care of it.
We'll talk again, Martin. Appreciate you giving me the update.
Appreciate it.
Take care.